Hi, this is Maura Genti, the evening of 7th of October, just after the budget, and this is my take on the key tax takeaways today. I suppose this is the first budget of the government's term, very much not an election budget, a steady the ship budget, a tax package that doesn't put the economy at risk, per the Minister. Going to concentrate on three key areas today, those for individuals, limited, as you probably have heard, for business, and then a little bit of time on property measures, which was a good portion of the budget today. On the individual side, you may already have heard, for the salaried employee, there should be no change or no material change to taxes. There are two valuable tax credits that were due to expire, and the Minister has just is extending them. One of them is the rental tax credit, so that's up to €1,000 cash tax back for renters. The other is the mortgage interest credit, a little bit more kind of finicky for those who can claim it, in that it's based on your mortgage interest above 2022 rates, but it is also a valuable relief, and it also will apply in 2026. The other matter that will probably impact some individuals are retail investors who've invested in funds, and the taxation of funds has been on the Irish tax agenda for a good few years now. The system is quite there is certainly on the more complex side, if I'm being generous. The change today has been will be a change in the rate, the default rate of 41% on those products, now going down to 38%. So a small change there, I suppose, a step in a direction. Won't apply to all foreign funds, but should apply to the majority, or certainly those on the retail market. I would expect that will probably apply from next year. We haven't got the full detail here. Funds, as those of you who have done a bit of research know, are quite complex, and the tax treatment can be quite difficult. There is further reviews expected, and the Minister today announced that they'll be publishing a roadmap for probably simplifying the regime next. Now that'll be next year, so it does take time, but certainly a step in the right direction on funds. Moving on to business, and I suppose the main headline is the reduction in the VAT for the food, catering and hairdressing sectors to 9%, effective from next summer. Doesn't apply to accommodation. The one with probably the most impact is the increase in the R&D tax credit to 35%, and it really is a kind of a cash tax back for businesses, and that's all businesses who can qualify, so multinationals and SMEs. Albeit, yes, SMEs can potentially get their refund sooner, and indeed there's been enhancements to that refund, the refund regime for SMEs, so they can get slightly more cash back in earlier years, which is welcome. Other modifications have been kind of kicked to touch regarding R&D relief for collaborations, in particular outsourcing, and indeed the actual definition of R&D. Still very much on the agenda, but subject to more consultation, which indeed has been a theme with other aspects of that budget today. Very slow to make real changes. Actually, one real change of substance for business owners, and very, very valuable change and very welcome in the sector, was the 10% rate for business owners on sale of their business. That 10% rate was introduced around 10 years ago now, and is the rate of capital gains tax for the first 1 million of gain. That 1 million limit has increased now to 1.5 million. So quite a valuable enhancement to the relief. Could result in a saving for individuals of around slightly more than 100,000. Will apply from 1 January next year rather than this evening. And is certainly to be welcome, because the default capital gains tax rate in Ireland is still the 33% and has been for many, many years, since 2012. So this is probably the main the main relief for entrepreneurs and business owners. Various other incentives and tax schemes that have been that were due to expire and have just been extended, and not much change in substance to them. Two targeted employee incentives: one, the SARP scheme for individuals coming into Ireland. Now you need to be on income or baseline salary of 125,000 to avail of that scheme. The other one, foreign earnings deduction, is for those individuals who live in Ireland but work abroad, particularly in developing countries, and now will include Turkey and the Philippines. That scheme has actually been enhanced, and the potentially of benefit of up to around 6,000 extra tax back for qualifying individuals. So that's welcome. For businesses, interest deductibility, one of the most complex or the complex areas in the tax code. Various consultations to make it a bit more simpler. There's to be an action plan, which as yet has not been published, but to be published today on maybe a roadmap for direction of travel, and that's subject to further consultation. So we knew it was a long road, and we're currently on that road, and it will probably be, I'd say, another year or so before there's any real changes, any real changes to that. But it certainly adds cost to business in the complexity of just getting getting comfort on the fact that you can take a tax deduction for your interest costs. Moving on to property, and probably the most changes of actual substance and new reliefs and new measures that we haven't seen before introduced today. One that's got the headlines is the reduced VAT rate for the sale of new apartments, 9%, which is effective from midnight tonight. Also, for developers who are building new apartments or indeed converting those, then there's an additional, effectively, corporate tax reduction on profits from that development. Works out like an additional deduction of 50,000. So that can be a tax benefit of in or around 6,000 per unit for those developers. Living City Relief, right, which is an existing relief, and probably one of the only old school property relief still on the books. That has been modified and very much enhanced, and it's certainly a very generous relief, but it has very niche application in that your property needs to be on a map which is set out by local authorities in the various cities it applies to. Those cities are to be expanded out to 6 towns or cities, depending on your categorization. And certainly if you have a property in any one of those areas, then it is very much worth looking at. And in particular, you probably will have heard mention of the living over the shop scheme that just applies to residences in this area. The relief, the enhancement means the relief will also apply to more properties in those areas in the maps. So previously you need to be a pre-1915 property. Now mid-century properties will also apply. So the devil will be in the detail, but certainly it's a generous relief, probably doesn't have the publicity it deserves, and this may give it a bit more of more momentum. Stamp duty refund scheme for residential development has been extended. No big surprise there. A new one, derelict property tax. There was an attempt to introduce something similar along these lines, the vacant property tax a few years ago, but that had an awful lot of carve-outs. This looks like it'll be a lot more robust and will be managed by the revenue commissioners. It will take a while for local authorities to come up with lists of what exactly are a derelict property, but the levy will be at least 7% market value on those properties. It'll take at least 2 years to be implemented, and we'll only see the law next year and the list the year after. But it is very much coming down the tracks. So just will impact a lot of people, and probably there was some need for something more robust in that realm, and this looks like it is it. And the final one is just an exemption for corporate tax on cost rental income properties, which are tenancies that are rented at below market value to medium income individuals. So one would not have thought there was much profit in any event on those. And it's just a corporate tax exemption. It doesn't apply to individuals. That's broadly it. What was not mentioned, I suppose a big one which would have got an awful lot of media attention in the last year was inheritance tax and both reliefs and bans around that. I suppose that's consistent with the minister's outline that they didn't want a tax package that puts the economy at risk. Now is the time to steady ourselves on the path for the future. So very much a jobs, stability and business side focused budget to my mind. Looking at it compared to last year, it's certainly a lot quieter budget, but I do think as someone who works with business, then it has a lot more impact and relevance and benefit to business compared to last year's election budget. On that, I'll let you go. We await more detail on these, and I suspect also as a tax advisor on other changes that probably will have a lot of impact on our day-to-day in the finance bill, which is due to be published in the next week or so. So thanks and good evening.